Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're travelling on one of Britain's most spectacular railway journeys, the magnificent Highland Main Line between Perth and Inverness. Stretching for around 118 miles through the very heart of Scotland, this railway is far more than simply a means of getting from one city to another. It is a line built through some of the most challenging terrain in Britain, crossing high mountain passes, vast moorlands, deep forests and sparkling rivers, while linking the Highlands with the rest of the country. As we make our way north, we'll discover why this remarkable railway was built, how Victorian engineers overcame incredible obstacles, and why it remains one of Scotland's most important railways today. For centuries, travelling between Perth and Inverness was incredibly difficult. The Highlands were isolated from much of Scotland, with roads often little more than rough tracks that became almost impassable during the winter. Journeys that can now be completed in just a few hours once took several days. By the middle of the 19th century, Britain was in the midst of the railway age. Railways were transforming trade, industry and travel throughout the country. But the Highlands remained largely cut off. Local communities, landowners and businesses all recognised that a railway would revolutionise life in northern Scotland. Livestock, timber, whisky and agricultural produce could be transported to markets much more quickly, while visitors from the south would finally have easy access to the breathtaking scenery of the Highlands. Building the railway would become one of the greatest engineering achievements of Victorian Britain. The engineer Joseph Mitchell first proposed a route through the Highlands during the 1840s, but many believed that locomotives simply couldn't cope with the steep gradients and harsh weather. Mitchell was determined to prove them wrong. He personally walked much of the proposed route, surveying valleys, rivers, and mountain passes, before finally receiving approval in the early 1860s. Construction began almost immediately. Thousands of navvies arrived in the Highlands, armed with little more than hand tools, horse-drawn carts, and explosives. They battled freezing winters, heavy snowfall, relentless rain, and incredibly remote working conditions. It was dangerous, exhausting work, but after less than 2 years, the railway was complete. The first trains began running in 1863. Although the original route was slightly different from the one we travel today. Initially, trains headed north via Grandtown-on-Spey and Forres before reaching Inverness. This added considerable distance to the journey. Everything changed in 1898 when the Inverness and Aviemore direct railway opened. This new section created the modern Highland Main Line through Carbridge and over Slochd Summit, making journeys both quicker and more efficient. Leaving Perth, the railway immediately begins climbing into Highland Perthshire, following the beautiful River Tay as the scenery becomes increasingly dramatic. Before long, we reach Stanley Junction, historically an important connection with routes heading towards Aberdeen. Continuing north, we arrive at Dunkeld and Birnam, one of the most picturesque locations on the entire route. Nestled amongst ancient woodlands alongside the River Tay, this charming town has attracted visitors for centuries, and the arrival of the railway helped establish it as one of Scotland's premier holiday destinations. The next major stop is Pitlochry, perhaps one of the Highlands' best-loved Victorian resort towns. Before the railway arrived, very few people ventured this far north for pleasure. Once the line opened, thousands of tourists travelled here every year, transforming the local economy. Today, Pitlochry remains a popular destination and one of the busiest stations between Perth and Inverness. Beyond Blair Atholl, the landscape changes dramatically. The forests begin to thin, the mountains become larger, and the railway starts its long climb towards one of Britain's most famous railway summits. Eventually, we reach Drumochter Summit, standing nearly 1,500 feet above sea level. This is the highest point on Britain's mainline railway network, and during the winter, it can experience some of the harshest weather anywhere in the country. Deep snowdrifts, freezing temperatures and high winds have challenged railway engineers for over 160 years. Keeping trains moving across Drumochter has always been a remarkable achievement. Even today, snowplows, specialist equipment and careful planning help ensure the line remains open during severe weather whenever possible. As the railway descends from the summit, we arrive at Dalwhinnie, famous throughout the world for its whisky distillery. At over 1,000 feet above sea level, it is one of the highest villages in Scotland and offers magnificent views across the surrounding mountains. Further north, we enter the beautiful Spey Valley, passing through Newtonmore and Kingussie. This area lies within the Cairngorms National Park, Britain's largest national park, where forests, rivers, mountains and wildlife combine to create some of the finest scenery anywhere in the United Kingdom. Soon we arrive at Aviemore. Today it's renowned as Scotland's outdoor adventure capital, attracting visitors for skiing, walking, mountain biking and wildlife watching. Much of its growth can be directly attributed to the arrival of the railway, which made this once remote Highland village accessible to visitors from across Britain. Leaving Aviemore, the railway begins another challenging climb towards Slochd Summit. Although not quite as high as Drumochter, this section features long, sustained gradients that tested Victorian steam locomotives to their limits. Heavy freight trains often required additional banking locomotives to help push them over the summit, while passenger trains worked hard to maintain their speed. From the summit, the line descends through stunning Highland scenery, passing to Matin before approaching Culloden. This area is forever linked with the Battle of Culloden in 1746, the final battle fought on British soil and one of the defining moments in Scottish history. Just a few miles beyond lies Inverness, often described as the capital of the Highlands. From here, the railway network spreads out towards Aberdeen, Kyle of Lacouche, Wick and Thurso, connecting some of Britain's most remote communities. Although this is one of Britain's most scenic railways, it remains a vital transport link today. ScotRail operates regular passenger services between Inverness, Perth, Edinburgh and Glasgow, while LNER provides direct trains all the way to London King's Cross. The famous Caledonian Sleeper also travels this route overnight, allowing passengers to fall asleep in London and wake up surrounded by the spectacular scenery of the Scottish Highlands. Freight traffic remains equally important. Timber harvested from highland forests, fuel supplies, supermarket goods and engineering materials all rely on this railway to reach communities throughout northern Scotland. One fascinating feature of the Highland Main Line is that much of it remains single track. Passing loops positioned at key locations allow trains travelling in opposite directions to pass each other safely. This requires extremely careful timetabling and close cooperation between signallers and train crews to keep everything running smoothly. Over recent years, Network Rail has invested heavily in upgrading the line. Longer passing loops, improved signalling and sections of double track have increased capacity and reduced journey times, while preserving the unique character of this historic railway. The Highland Main Line is far more than simply a railway. It is a triumph of Victorian engineering, a vital transport artery for modern Scotland, and one of the most scenic railway journeys anywhere in Europe. From the rolling countryside of Perthshire to the rugged mountain passes of Drumochter and Slochd, every mile tells the story of determination, innovation, and the ambition to connect the Highlands with the rest of Britain. Whether you're travelling in the driver's cab, sitting by the window as a passenger, or simply watching from home, it's easy to understand why this route is regarded as one of the jewels of the British railway network. Thank you very much for travelling with me today. I really hope you've enjoyed learning about the history of the Highland Main Line between Perth and Inverness. If you have enjoyed this journey, please give the video a thumbs up, share it with your friends and fellow railway enthusiasts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for many more driver's eye view videos, railway documentaries, and fascinating journeys across Britain's incredible railway network. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.